Hi, I'm Bailey Koger, and this is my adapted lesson plan over media literacy from the OER Commons. Um, oops, there we go. So these are the standards that I would use throughout this lesson. Most of these were suggested by the OER Commons lesson plan. They address both reading informational text and speaking and listening standards. So I would use this lesson in a literacy classroom. That is my sole focus of this. The focus here on these Common Core standards is between the 11th and 12th grade level. However, as a 7th and 8th grade English teacher, I could fully adapt this lesson down to whatever level I needed between 7th grade and 12th grade. The materials used, students would use Chromebooks, and their sole use of the Chromebooks would be having access to the internet, Kahoot, Google Classroom, and other external websites that are attached to this slideshow. If students are using this in a more self-paced manner, they would need headphones to watch the videos, and then there's also pencil and paper aspects throughout this lesson as well. So the first thing is to address what is media literacy. So students need to understand that it's the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, produce communication and information in different forms. And they also need to know what media it includes anyway. So what is media? It's print, visual, audio, and digital formats. Media literacy, so combining literacy with the media, it includes reading and writing, and it goes from recognizing information to using higher order thinking skills. So this lesson is really focused around taking the basics of media, evaluating them for what they are, and digging deeper into the media and the literacy behind it, and using higher order thinking skills to reach that. So the objectives that students have throughout this lesson is that students will be able to analyze, read, and engage with the media text. Students will also be able to cite textual evidence to support reasoning. And students will be able to discuss how media communicates through a variety of images and audio to convey a message. And so that's important that students have an understanding that literacy itself is communicating messages, and how the media does that is done in a very specific way. So they'll start with a think, pair, share activity, answering this essential question: how do various forms of media create positive and or negative messages about a specific group of people, a lifestyle choice, and or a particular culture? So students should have a basic understanding of connotation and denotation, so they should use their connotative skills here in order to answer the positive versus negative effects, but we'll readdress this essential question at the end. So to introduce the lesson, it's important that they understand that media is a constructed text. So as a teacher, when I look at the Arkansas State Standards, for example, it refers to using literacy skills with a text. What it doesn't say is what type of text. So it could be a print text, but it could also be a type of media text. And so this is a way to address those types of standards to students. So to begin with, students will play a Guess the Logo game. These are some examples of logos that are included in the Kahoot, but I would follow the link to the Kahoot here, and students will use their Chromebooks and guess the appropriate company with the image. To model the lesson, students will read an article called Logos That Stick. So if they're doing this on their own, they would follow this link, and it takes them to an article here. Logos That Stick, analysis of the world's most famous logos. So it gives them some basic information about why are they important, why are they memorable, colors that make them stick, shapes, fonts, emotions, and then it walks them through a variety of famous logos and gives them information on those. So students will read this article, and then in response to the article, students will write a paragraph of 5 to 7 sentences answering all of the parts included here. This assignment would also be posted in Google Classroom, where they would be able to write on a document and turn it in there. Students are also familiar with the RACE writing strategy, where they not only restate an answer, but they also cite evidence from the text and then explain what that evidence means and how it relates to their answer. So the questions that they would address is, what new information did they learn? Of the elements of an effective logo, which is most impactful, and that gives them the opportunity to use their own reasoning here. And then, what is a logo that they have seen around recently, and why does that stand out to them? So then I will guide students over how to read logos, because how to read a book has a specific skill, but how to read images is also a specific skill. So I would give them the image of an Amazon logo. And the first question that I would ask to the class would be, what do you notice about the logo? And these are just some potential responses. Is that it's simple. Colors include black and orange. There's an arrow. Some students might go a little more in depth, like there's a bump in the Z, or it's all lowercase. But just having them notice and observe is the first step. The next step is asking, how do color, positioning, font, choice, or other design elements grab their attention? So an example here is that maybe they say that the orange arrow sticks out, the Z has a dent, and some students might even say that it makes a smile shape. Some students might say that it goes from A to Z. So their observations might be different, but it's also important that they know that there's not a right or wrong answer to that. And then going into that higher order thinking, they're asked, what emotion does it evoke? Not right or wrong, but if they see it as a happy face, they might recognize it as being a happy emotion. If they see it going from A to Z, they might recognize it as being urgent or an eager emotion. So it's all about teaching them to draw emotion from a simple image. So independently, they'll practice a logo analysis. The activity is linked here, but essentially they'll complete the assignment. It would be in Google Classroom, where they find their own logo. And then they walk through that same evaluation process that we did as a class. And they would record their responses and turn them in. So then they're going to go deeper into this evaluation. Rather than simply just looking at the text, they're going to look at an ad. So this ad, for example, is a Nike ad where the logo is included, but there's more in depth. There's an image, there's words, and this video gives a good overview about how to analyze it and annotate it, and then they would be using the text skill of Kami as well. So based off that video, they'll be following that same process by choosing 2 ads. For modified students, they may just choose 1 rather than 2, and they'll use Kami and answer the discussion questions attached to this activity in Google Classroom. Also, so now they've understood logos, they understand ads, and now they're going to dig deeper into what is persuasion. And so linked here, attached to Mr. Rogers himself, is a video from YouTube where Mr. Rogers gives an explanation of the power of persuasion. And I think that's actually really vital in our world today, in the world of marketing and all of those things. And so we would watch this as a class. If students are doing this flipped, they could watch it by themselves. This lesson overall would go for a span of a couple of days, and this video itself would be about a half class period, and students would be able to take notes and annotate throughout. And then giving a brief lesson, more of a refresher for older students on Logos, Ethos, Pathos, and what each of those entail. And then if students are still stuck here, the link attached in blue gives a more detailed study of what each of these rhetorical elements are. So, what is tone? Again, this would just be a refresher in an English classroom, hopefully, for 11th and 12th grade students. It is in the standards that in 6th grade students learn what the difference between tone and mood are, but they define the importance of tone here and how it impacts a way that a message is received. And so there's a quick YouTube video attached here that explains that to students. And again, we could watch this as a class. It could be done independently in class with headphones on a self-paced manner, or they could do it at home if that's the case. For their overall assessment to measure everything touched in this lesson, they're going to choose their own TV, TikTok ad, or YouTube ad and complete the rhetorical analysis process where they'll include the purpose. Well, that's what we did with logos. They include the purpose. Then they'll study the rhetorical elements such as logos, ethos, pathos. So what the author's view is, the logic behind it, and the emotion. And then as well as the tone. And they will fill out a graphic organizer on that, and it would be turned in using Google Classroom. There could also be physical handouts ready as well. And that assessment is attached to the link here in the assignment. To close off the lesson, I would refer back to the essential question, considering this is what the entirety of the lesson has been about, is how to take that media and how to take literacy and not only understand the importance of it, but be able to analyze it and evaluate media literacy, because there is a different way of looking at it. So students would refer back to this question, and this is where paper and pencil would come into play, and they would write their responses here. If this is done in a complete flipped environment, obviously there would be a way to incorporate this question into a technology way of responding. But this would show student growth of ideas. It would show their new learned knowledge and how they take this information and how they could apply it to their real life. So not only assessing their knowledge of the content, but also assessing their application of it. And then in summary here, modifications, those would be followed based on students' IEPs and 504 plans. And then the way that the assessment is given, some students may need to have shortened assignments. Some may be given extra time for those assignments. However, those would be done on the Google Classroom. And then I would arrange the class to where students would have peer help. I never want just a dead silent classroom. Students need to be able to have the ability to bounce ideas off of one another, and sometimes their peer can explain something in a different way than I explained it, either in the slides or in person, and they can connect better with that peer. As far as differentiation goes, there's a variety of tasks that appeal to multiple learners. Everything from hands-on with the Kahoot, different writing activities, different discussion activities. There's online engagement, ways that students can work more independently, ways that they can work more so with a peer, ways that they can engage more so with me as the teacher. The lesson itself is very differentiated for all types of learners, no matter where they are in their journey. So overall, this is my lesson, my adapted lesson from OER Commons on media literacy in a literacy classroom.